Welcome back to the show. Now we're getting into our Skyfall review. To start off with the overview, this is a 2012 spy film and 23rd in the James Bond series. The film stars Daniel Craig, Javier Bardem, not this guy. I can't say focus. And the film is about Bond investigating a series of targeted data leaks and coordinated attacks on MI6 led by Raul Silva at a budget of 150 to 200 million and brought in 1.109 billion into the box office. Also has a 92% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And this film was nominated for five awards at the 85th Academy Awards. And looking back at it, I mean, this is a movie. It's one of the, to me, I'd put it up as the best Bond film. One of the best, if not, top three. I think looking at the totality of it, the cinematography was really good. Daniel Craig was really in his element. Javier Bardem, you just have that great villain. To you, like looking back at it, like what were your initial thoughts on this film and just, how it's aged 11 years later?
I do think he was the best villain for sure.
Yeah.
Out of all the Bonds, even the old school ones, it's just what he brings to the screen.
It's different. It's so different.
Yeah, it's just like even in just like it's like his like how it was just weird. That's my favorite scene. We'll get to that. But no, when watching this film, the cinematography was amazing. How they shot this. Obviously, action films get you more into sequences, a lot of jump cuts sometimes. But I love how this was shot. I think this was probably one of the best filmed Bond movies. Obviously, you got
It was
the
actual
cameras.
film. It was an actual film. Yeah.
Yes, and Sam Mendes is known for some of the quick shots, hero shots. Like in some of the sequences, he's really good at, and he can get to sink his teeth in it because it's an action film. And then it's James Bond. You got that. You got to have that certain repertoire when it comes to a Bond's film. But nah, this was really dope. I really enjoyed Javier's performance in this movie. Like he just sinks into that role, but in real life, he's such a nice guy. So you wouldn't
it's such a switch. It's such a switch.
Yeah, it's such a switch in a role. It's clean. It's no like faults in his acting. It's all clean acting.
Definitely. And before we move on, do you think that's what elevated into getting into? Obviously, the cinematography was going to get Academy Award nominations, but do you kind of feel as though when you have that elite villain, like we saw what he did in No Country for Old Men, like he's that guy, he builds up that repertoire. That's what kind of elevates it to like, okay, the Oscars are going to recognize this.
Of course, I think the protagonist. I mean, the antagonist is as big as the protagonist.
Yeah,
and I think when it comes to him being a villain or just one of those, because he can get into these roles and bring. It's like the mannerisms. It's like the sort things, like him just getting up, and it's like different movements that bring it to light and just makes things more involved for the character into
more complete
on screen. Yeah, more complete. Just how he was like, that's not a good mom. Like it's just like you felt like you just was like in a fly on the room, like, bro, he really going in on this lady that you really thought. And like, so it's just like his acting brings so much to the table, and having a villain makes the whole screenplay, the dialogue, everything better, because they didn't really say that much in one of these scenes. And it carried weight though. It was all about movements, like we talked about. Heat, Al Pacino. It was like they really didn't say much. They was like, it's how they looked around, how they wasn't like, they were nonchalant. He wasn't afraid. Like, bro, you're not gonna do nothing to me. What you gonna do to me? Like Rob Nero's character, what you gonna do to me?
Yeah,
like, yeah. So it's just like, yeah, it's a whole like, nother story within the story, brother.
Al Pacino's like,
okay. And then it was like he was unfazed by it. It's the same thing in certain scenes here. Like the characters really brung it out. It was more so not even the dialogue, but it was like, the body movements and the body language.
Definitely. And I'll get into our first topic from 1 to 4 stars. What would you give it? I would definitely give this 1 4 because this was a perfectly just orchestrated film, from the action and inventive set pieces. And like we said, like the villain, it takes it to a different notch.
Yeah.
And I feel as though this was kind of like one of the more vulnerable Bond performances because of obviously his partnership with M and just kind of like the history that they had together and what they went through over the years. To you, from 1 to 4 stars, what would you give it?
Definitely 4 stars because of the villain and the cinematography. I think that obviously it tells a story within the story, and how you shoot it, how you emphasize the scene with the shots that you take, and just the Javier playing this silver role as the villain just brings it more out and makes you like be attentive to what's going on the screen because you can get lost sometimes in James Bond's films. Okay, there's gonna be a lot of shit shooting, a lot of shaking those stir martinis, a lot of females, a lot of like, but you can get lost in the action. But I think him being this violent villain and this kind of like mild mannered villain,
Yes,
I
very
think
different.
it brings a different style to the James Bond films. So definitely 4 stars because of that.
Absolutely. And I'll get into favorite character. To me, Silva. I mean,
Yeah,
he really
it's
take this award away because I mean,
yeah.
such a top tier enemy and managed to control the tempo in a lot of chilling scenes. And we mentioned so many times with villains, it's not just like the ones who were like the physically like intimidating ones, but also like the ones who can tap into that psychological element. He really does that in so many different scenes. Like, to you overall, what stood out to you like about him in this movie?
His storytelling within his character.
Yeah.
Him talking about, hello James, do you like the island? My grandmother had an island. Like it's just he just goes, but it all ties back into what he's trying
It's
to
bringing it
say
back.
within the character. Yeah. So it's like most villains, they tell stories or they have this certain dialogue, but I think this dialogue was different because now he's talking about his upbringing within bringing it back to the focal point of the story or the scene. The story doesn't take away from the scene and how it's shot, but it enhances it and emphasizes the development of that character. Because you wouldn't know his grandma had a island or they hid oil drums, and I think he said something about they tied coconuts or something in it and he hid from the
Yeah.
rats or something. Like, why are you telling me this, bro? Like,
Literally.
why? But it's like it's a psychotic slash sane thing that you bring to the character because now you're like, bro, what are you talking about? Like, imagine you're in that sense and your hands tied behind your back, and a dude is talking about his grandmother in his island and them hiding oil drums and stuff. Like, bro, just kill me already,
That's what
bro. What
I'm
are you
saying.
talking
Don't
about?
prolong this anymore. Like,
So it was your typical dialogue, but with not your typical dialogue. If that makes sense,
right.
because is a different style of storytelling. Because you know how all villains will tell their whatever,
Mhm.
and then like, oh, we saw this coming. I think with this villain, you didn't really see what he was all about firsthand.
Right.
It took a while to see him develop, which is what you want in a villain.
Absolutely. And now getting to most memorable scenes, I had the word test and bullet removal. Also, the glass
Mm-hmm.
marksman shot. Bond meets Q. Silva
Yeah.
attacks M at the government board of inquiry. The M poem scene. Also, Silva's reunion with M. One thing right, and then finally the ending scene. To you, overall in this movie, what were some of like the scenes, or maybe one in particular that kind of stood out the most?
The best scene when he was talking about the island, I thought that was one of the best scenes to me because obviously we were introduced to Silva in a more heightened fashion, and then we get the background of Bond as well. Like, you didn't pass your all this stuff. Like, you
Yeah, he's
really
like, you
think
got a
she's
40%.
bro, like, bro, she lying to you, bro. Like, you're not supposed to be back here. So she doesn't really care. So now we got a heightened sense of both characters' development. And then I think the dialogue and the body language in that scene was really, really dope. I thought it kind of, brung the story to some type of crescendo in some sense. But I
Yeah.
thought that was the dopest one. That was the dopest one. The dialogue was dope. The body language was dope. Him just getting up, cracking his teeth, like, and then the blonde hair gets me every time. Like, bro, I would never see Javier with blonde
Ever.
hair. Yeah, it was extremely weird, but it was cool for the character.
Yeah.
Because first look, you won't think he's a villain or a bad guy. You
At
think,
all.
what I'm saying? He sell condos in Miami.
Condos in Miami. Hey
This
man,
dude
can
is
you hook me
tying
up?
people
Can you
up.
hook me up?
Right.
And before we move on, it's so interesting looking at this franchise. I mean, I'm like so many like years have passed by where it's different types of Bond characters, different type of Bond actors portraying the role. Like to you, like what makes this franchise one that people like still revisit? Because I mean, even growing up, I mean, I would see so many like Bond flashbacks. It was a movie that like the type of movies that would always kind of be on reruns. To you, like what makes this franchise one that people even still revisit and still have interest in? Even for the newer ones.
I think there was always a sense of like fascination with spy films,
Yes.
and then you have this guy who's like at night and whatever fighting, killing people, saving the world, and he's drinking martinis, shaking not stirred. He's a ladies' man, so it's a lot of fascination with these films because I think Sean Connery was James Bond as well. He was a good James Bond too. Shaken not stirred, stirred. His voice was so weird, but he was a dope James Bond. So I think it was a fascination with the charisma that came with James Bond, and then the danger he also
Yes.
faced and brought, to the screen. So I think it was a fascination for it.
Definitely. And I'll get into most more quotes. I had sometimes the always are the best from Eve. Also, all the jumping and fighting, it's exhausting from Silva. I'm guessing this is not official from Q. You know the answer to that. You know the whole story from Bond. And finally, some men are coming to kill us. We're going to kill them first from Bond. Like,
That's
to
a good
me,
one.
that was a really good one. There were so
Really
many,
good one.
a lot of times, it's cliche quotes in Bond movies. I feel as though with this one there was like more focus on the dialogue and especially with the storytelling from Silva. To you, like overall, what was like maybe like one or two quotes that kind of popped out to you?
I'm gonna read it verbatim. Do you see what comes off all this running around, Mr. Bond? All this jumping and fighting is exhausting. Relax. You need to relax. Oh well, mother's calling. It was so.
Yeah,
I'll give her a goodbye kiss for you, bro. That's some strong dialogue,
very
bro.
much so.
The condescending in it, the just sarcasm within it, with all in one paragraph, and his facial expressions is bringing it out too. And then the other one, he was talking about something, or James Bond said, or a gas explosion in London. He's like, just point and click. Well, everybody needs a hobby. He says, so what's yours? Resurrection. Dope. Because James Bond don't die, brother. He comes back.
Fireline.
So I
Fire.
thought that was a fire line. What's yours? Resurrection. And he just looked at him. Yeah, bro.
Touche.
You can't say
Touche.
nothing to that. Yeah, you
It's
can't
like, all
say
right,
nothing to that. That was
got
dope.
Definitely. And I'll get to what did you like the most about the storyline. To me, just how it prioritized the partnership between James Bond and M. It's such a
Yeah.
major part of the story, and this makes the character even, like I said before, even more vulnerable, which is a side that we really don't see out of a lot of Bond movies. To you, like, what particular element of this storyline did you like the most?
That, to be honest with you, because he trusted her, throughout this process, right? Even
Yeah,
like before Skyfall. And then somebody tearing down the whole thing, like all you thought about her now is untrue. Now you have to find a retrust in her and build that trust up again
back
and
up.
still save the day. But I also liked the villain aspect, the new type of villain aspect, who told stories, was different. He didn't move like normal villains. He didn't talk like normal villains.
Right.
He was an outcast of villains, I thought. And to bring that to the screen into Skyfall, which I think is one of it's definitely top three, bro.
Yeah,
It's definitely top. I got
absolutely.
Skyfall. I got
Yeah, go ahead.
Die Another Day. I don't know. My favorite Bonds is Pierce
Oh, you
Bronson.
like Pierce Bronson
That's
the best?
that's one of
Gotcha.
my favorite Bonds. That's where I grew up on. Like Die Another Day, it was a couple before that. I mean, he had an invisible car, like in the snow.
Ooh.
Like I remember, like, bro, that's what I remember as
That's
a
the one
kid.
that
So
I rewatched the most because it was always on Die Another Day. Like that was up there.
yes.
That was definitely up
And
there.
then Holly Berry was in it. So
Yeah, we're
I
definitely
mean,
replaying that. Run it back.
rewind.
I was like,
But no,
Holly's
yeah,
in this. Holly's in this. Hold up.
Holly Berry, and she got the little
Hold
short
up.
spiky hair. Oh, I don't need But no, man, yeah. So, man, I love that aspect was as well as the new aspect of villainy. I don't know if that was a word, but I'm gonna go with it. But I think it
Rock
was
out.
different from any other James Bond film, and that's what I
So
really liked
different.
about it. It's so different from any James Bond film because you don't like see what's coming. You can't expect what type of villain you're going to see. Even with the one this guy played in, I think it was No Time to Die. Oh, no, it was Casino Royale.
Another
Like
one of my
I could,
favorites. Another one of
it
my
was a
favorites.
really good one, but the villain, I can tell what type of villain he was.
Predictable. Yeah,
Yeah,
very predictable.
predictable. In this one, you got a guy with blonde hair, obviously from Ecuador. There's no way they have blonde hair in Ecuador. No way.
This
And your
man said
grandmother got an island, bro? Like what, bro? Like it was just a different type of James Bond film. But he played in four. I didn't know he played in that
that's a
many.
lot. That's a
That's
lot,
how you
man.
know they like you.
Timothy Dalton only in one. That was it.
Yeah,
He was only in one.
yeah.
I know Sean Connery. He had a plethora of them.
Oh,
He
yeah,
took the cake.
yeah. He was,
Pierce
yeah, he
Bronson.
was
Pierce
like
Bronson had a
the
few.
not, yeah,
Pierce Bronson
yeah. I
had
think he had
several.
three.
Roger
I think
Moore.
he had three.
Yeah, Roger Moore had a lot. But I mean, when you get four, man, they are invested in. Looking back at the mid 2010s, he was running it. Everybody knew it was
Yeah,
Daniel Craig. It was definitely
yeah.
Daniel Craig. And before we get to our last topic, looking at Sam Mendes, like what he's done, like he made films like 1917, Road to Perdition, and looking at what he did with this movie, like what impressed you the most? Because I know, like for you, you really focus on how films are shot. What impressed you the most about his direction, what he kind of brought to this franchise?
Well, I think he brung. It's. I think it's telling a story, right? And we always say the shots and the scenery tells a story within the story, but it's how you shoot it. It's what angles you use in the right moments to bring the scene out.
Yeah.
He didn't use a lot of hero shots, but he used a lot of close up shots, a lot of emotion,
Mhm.
a lot of evoking body language. So it was a lot of like jump cuts, a lot of close up shots to see, and then once it came to action, it was a lot of great sequences. So he brought all the action together, but it was sequenced to where it made sense. Like you can
Yes.
have some scenes that some like Westcom scenes don't go together. Like they were in the editing room. It's like I wish we would have shot
Yeah.
this shot, but we have to use this shot. I think everything was determined and shot really well. That they had so much that it made sense because a lot of directors will like I think who it was. It was a director of Training Day, and it was a scene he was talking about Denzel Washington's scene where he was like, "King Kong got on to me." If you look at that shot, it was unfocused. It was
Right.
unfocused. It was blurry, but he wanted to use it because of the improvised line by Denzel Washington. And normally, you want to use that. If a shot is unfocused or whatever, you won't use that. You'll try to figure it out another way. But I said that to say, I think when Sam Mendes he shoots with purpose and he shoots with strategic sequences that brings the story to life as well as make it make sense. Because
Mhm.
how did that car blow up and we didn't see something that pre no led
Predated.
up to that? Or yeah, it's
Yeah.
just sometimes these directors are weird, and then they whatever they try to do everything in edit instead of shooting it with purpose, like Clint Eastwood does, like Quentin Tarantino, because Clint Eastwood do not waste film. He
At all.
shoots one and twice, and then he's over where he's gone. He shoots with purpose, and I think that's what Sam Mendes does.
Absolutely. And now getting to our last topic, 10 years from now, do you still think it'll be watchable and intriguing? It's definitely like this is the
It's
11th year
Bond.
anniversary of it. A lot of people have been
Yeah,
talking about it, rewatching it. To me, it's top three Bond movie. It gets into that emotional dialogue. It gets into the psyche of Bond. This is like the most we've seen the psyche of Bond kind of analyzed and him just being vulnerable. And then Silva, it just takes the cake for the best Bond villain ever and
yeah.
hits it in every scene. Really hits the mark in every scene. To you, what do you think will make this intriguing? Just even another decade from now for newer viewers.
It's Bond, man. It's hard not to. I think this is one series or like, well, I call it series. They have so many. It's not a sequel anymore. These are like this is a series at this
Yeah,
point. So many James Bond movies, um, but it's historically sound and set in stone. James Bond. Everybody knows what James Bond is. Even if you don't like it or don't want to
you're
watch,
gonna
you're gonna
watch. Yeah,
watch it
you're gonna
again.
see it.
You're gonna watch it again. And then you look at Daniel Craig's performance. He's got better every film he's been in with as
He
being
progressed.
Bond. He's progressing every film. And I think this one was his best film because now he has somebody to go with great dialogue. I'm not saying all the other villains weren't good in dialogue or body language or
They
bringing
weren't to
scenes to
this
life.
degree. They weren't
Yeah,
to
but
this degree.
Javier, he's wins awards for a reason, bro. The man is a monster when it comes to bringing these characters to life. So now you have that. I wonder how much they paid him, what they had to say to get him to play this role. But I think this is what made the film, and I think this is what people are going to come back in and watch because he great performance again.
Absolutely. I mean, just exceptional all the way around, and it's one that stays in that kind of pantheon of Bond movies. Well, that wraps it up for tonight. I'm your host, Wenza Burns. I'm my counterpart, Savon Morris. This has been Full Scope. See you later.